So the director's concept for Mr. Burns really tried to differentiate between each of the three acts. With the first act, we're immediately post some sort of emergency. The world is largely like our own, but people are feeling isolated, finding each other in the wilderness. And so we're in a natural space, but it's very kind of closed. The second act is about 10 years later. There's still vestiges of what would seem like today, but we don't have any electricity. So we're often pretending as though we do, as you can see in this image here, but we're creating effects with um, post-electric points of view. The third act is like 20 years in the future, and it's sort of a return to a pre-industrial, it's post-apocalyptic, and we're creating new rituals. And one of the ways that we tried to highlight this for the audience was actually looking at theatrical machinery and approaches to creating theater from the far, far past. And so I looked back at ways that special effects took place in a pre industrial, pre electric theatrical world.
So we're looking at three different oleo drops, or sometimes they're called roll drops. This is, again, the idea with, with the production of Mr. Burns is we're looking at technology that could be sort of human powered, and operated unless maybe sort of, pre-industrial revolution is the idea. So things that are working through that kind of mechanism. So these are essentially pieces of canvas that are painted that are attached to sort of a mount up at the top. And then we're also attached, literally using gaff tape, to a pipe essentially down at the bottom. These pipes are PVC, rather large, so they have enough weight that will actually unfurl and kind of roll down. And then we have a rigging system that's essentially, we have rope that functions on either end of the pipe, and it's sort of wound up in opposite directions on either side. So these are sort of wound in in a clockwise direction at the bottom, so that as this kind of furls up and you pull this pipe upward, you're rolling up the drop around the pipe. So it allows you to be able to change moments and change scenery using fabric in a pipe, essentially, kind of in the way that blinds would maybe work, or even Roman shades or things like that. Technology that essentially you're using a cord to be able to lower and raise something. We do have a pulley system up top. So on sort of one side of the oleo drop sort of setup, we have a singular pulley, which means we have just this sort of line that runs down to the left side of the pipe, runs up to a single pulley, and then cuts across. And we have a double pulley on this side. So we have to make sure we have enough rope to basically run from the fullest position, which this would be currently sitting in, to wind up around this pipe, go up through that single pulley, come over here through the double pulley, and all the way back down to where we have this mounted. Then on the right side of the drop, we also have our rope sort of attached, and this runs up to that double pulley, the other side of the double pulley, and then back down. So essentially you have to make sure that there's a whole process of trying to make sure once you get everything mounted and through the pulleys that everything's level. And then for operation, these essentially kind of come down, they come through the double pulley, and in terms of how we utilize this in production, this is primarily used in Act 2. Again, it's a show that involves a lot of different kind of moving components, especially in the second act. And so being able to layer these drops on a unit that we're also using in Act 3 gives us the ability to change the space and do it pretty quickly. We're also seeing a rehearsal process in Act 2, so we're able to see the actors actually pull in and drop each kind of location. So this is sort of the last drop that we see in sequence. There are three, so an actor could easily take this cord and pull this up, and we've already double checked and made sure that our length is appropriate, so that we'll have a level drop, and you can pull this up pretty easily. So we usually kind of coil this up. technology that we would see kind of before the Industrial Revolution. So really the idea that you could coil up a piece of fabric and have it painted as a backdrop, gives you a lot of possibilities over, not only in this context over a rolling stage unit, but also it really eliminates, you're just dealing with this one kind of roll with an entire, backdrop for a set. So you could throw it into a wagon, you could throw it into a traveling show, and very easily be able to transport that from one place to another and change as many locations as you need to. So definitely something that you would see in terms of, the backdrop of theater history, so to speak. You'd see it in a lot of eras, pre-Industrial Revolution. We were really kind of looking at those kind of time frames, and thinking about how can we change a space in a location without such a focus on new modern technology. So the idea with this production is basically we're working through, hand sort of powered, human kind of powered, non-electrical technology. So pre-Industrial Revolution era kind of, modalities for stage technology. And one of those involved these wave units that essentially are hand crank, kind of a rotating drum. And the idea is that you have kind of a false front that essentially has this like flat kind of, facing panel that the audience would see, and you don't see the mechanism of the rotation underneath, but you see the waves kind of crashing and rotating. And essentially, these are, like I said, just built over a rotating kind of drum. So sort of jokingly, we call them the rotisserie waves, but of sorts. But really, they rotate very easily, and they could also be worked at different speeds. Again, it's all up to the operator in terms of that technology. But and then also working again with students not only on the operation of these units, but in also being able to paint these in layers and add depth. And kind of not only the false front, but also the three-dimensional wave too.
I stand on the deck, I feel the boat sway, bodies